Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. More Rostermania rumours going down last night, but the big reaction was Shotzzy's perspective on the Los Angeles Thieves Superteam, which we're pretty sure now is going to be formed over these coming days. Shotzzy reckons that Toronto, therefore, will probably be a non-factor next season. Looks like Cloud9 could be the same story for them. Shotzzy is expecting a 3-team league in the CDL next season, but which team on paper is the best of those three? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Happy birthday to JoeDeceives. We're going to talk a bit more about Joe in a second here because of where he might potentially or potentially not end up. Let's talk Cloud9 in terms of the aspect, right? Because Cloud9, New York Subliners, Laura, I know, tweeted a while ago, like, basically rest in peace of the Subliners branding, and we did see this a while ago from Laura as well, with Joe and Cinder together. Now, look, what I'll say here is I'm pretty sure JoeDeceives and Skyz and potentially Cinder relatively close. Now, it's unclear whether Cinder's actually still going to be on Cloud9 next year as their head coach because ReeaL is gone. There are rumours linking Cinder to Los Angeles Thieves following HyDra over there. That is a possibility to, they need a JCat replacement, right? And if you're Thieves, you're spending an absolute bag on signing Scrap and HyDra and Envoy and those guys, then, are you going to skimp out on the coaching staff and just have one in Shane? Or are you going to bring somebody else who knows how to integrate HyDra into, a successful championship winning system? That is another question. But I think for JoeDeceives, his most likely destination is probably Cloud9. I guess the question is, what do Cloud9 now do? If HyDra's gone, Sib is not going to be playing with Skyz and Kiz as far as I'm concerned. So your options really are, you keep Skyz and Kiz and you build around them and you try and sell Sib, or you get rid of Skyz and Kiz, you try and sell them, you build around Sib. I feel like the latter option is maybe the better option, but it doesn't seem to me that they're probably going to do that. So, and JoeDeceives, of course, will be available if the super team forms. I feel like, a potential Cloud9 Joe is absolutely on the cards, given who he gets along with and stuff like that. And yeah, this was just a clip of Octane talking about Cinder being a good pickup for the Los Angeles Thieves. Jacob, of course, no longer coaching, didn't want to coach any longer. Shane is still over there though, and Cinder coming in as effectively the head coach over there. Look, Los Angeles Thieves are making moves. There's no doubt about it that they are trying to be the most competitive force in the CNL next season, and on paper, they definitely have the pieces to pull that off. Quickly on MettalZ as well. Of course, we talked about his tweet the other day that he's been let go by Activision because he was effectively an employee of Activision Blizzard to commentate the Call of Duty League. That's no longer the case. His contract has been effectively terminated, so he's no longer a full-time, he's no longer got a salary that he gets month on month. Instead, he will still be casting the CDL. He said, yeah, the CDL got in touch and he's going to be around, he's going to be commentating, but I feel like in the long run it might be better for MettalZ that he can also do other things as well. He's not exclusively tied to Activision and the Call of Duty League, but instead of having a monthly salary for 12 months, he will be making whatever money, what his day rate is or whatever for commentating the games and the majors. I also do wonder exactly what that means for the online qualifiers, because we saw, well, assuming that it's still online qualifiers, which hopefully it's not, but let's be real, it probably is. We saw this a couple of years ago when Merc and Maven were on official Activision contracts that to save money, they pretty much just cut them out from doing online qualifiers and just had them for the majors because their day rates were like higher than they wanted to pay for the qualifiers. So I don't know if there's going to be a similar thing happening here with MettalZ, hopefully not, but it's good to see that, yeah, he's still going to be around cards. Absolute legends. But let's dive into some of the Rostermania stuff. Of course, we saw this from Beans the other day, signing a contract. We're pretty sure that is with Toronto, and I guess you can debate in some way what Shotzzy is going to say in a second. Is saying, well, without Scrappy, without Envoy, Toronto are going to be a non-factor. I still feel like they are going to form a team that can be competitive. It's just probably going to be a team that's a bit more inconsistent. And, I think Toronto, this team, looking at it, they should make some championship Sundays, possibly. Whether they can go any further is a question, though. And actually, Ben also tweeted yesterday, this is Beans, of course, saying, hourglass emoji, or as we like to call it here on the channel, the egg timer, and, kind of taking notes and getting ready. I don't know. The other piece, though, is what's going on with ReeaL, because over the last couple of days now we've seen rumours that, yeah, ReeaL is likely to be joining the Toronto Ultra as their 4th man. So the gif that he tweets out here, I don't really know what he's getting at. There's a couple of people that have read into this certain ways. One of the arguments might be, oh, well, it's crazy how easy it is to get the appropriate visas when an organisation is serious, right? Because let's not forget ReeaL was on London or Carolina, as they were back then briefly. And then they were like, oh, well, yeah, he's playing from Europe and we can't really get the visas, so we can't be bothered, we're going to sign TJ instead. And then it wasn't far afterwards that he was signed to Miami, and they, of course, got it all sorted. I guess there would be some additional complication maybe, or maybe fewer complications, to be fair. Getting him to Canada to play for Toronto, that might well be easier. So tough to know what ReeaL's getting at, but all you've got to say is that we've got Beans, we've got ReeaL tweeting some things at a similar time, and there is certainly a theory right now that ReeaL will be the 4th man. It is interesting, though, from Toronto's side, because if you're Toronto, yes, they want to form apparently a fully European team, which is pretty interesting, but then again, if you're paying a buyout for ReeaL, which they will be having to get him off Miami, then you could have possibly paid a buyout to Cloud9 for Sib, because you know, one of the theories of getting Beans over Sib, although I actually think that's probably the right move, but, you know, one of the theories getting Beans over Sib would be, well, you know, it's free, right? Free agent, don't have to pay any money for him, no buyout involved, completely unrestricted, which is true. For Sib, you've got to pay some dollar, and I don't really know where Sib actually goes, because it doesn't look like Surge are going to be interested. Lots of other teams have their situation locked down, so, you know, we don't know Rocker, we don't know Ravens, you know, I'm sure players like Slasher will be interested in a couple of those spots as well, given the way that things stand. So, yeah, Rostermania is still absolutely in flux right now, but, you know, the latest rumour is that this Los Angeles Thieves situation is getting close, or is potentially now effectively a done deal. Ronnie says, Nade and Thieves clutched up because Gentle Mates. So, this was interesting, wasn't it? Gatarga, owner of Gentle Mates, a legendary COD pro in the French scene, massive content creator, came on stream and said, HyDra to Gentle Mates is never going to happen, like 0 chance or whatever he said about that. But then he went on to say that, you know, getting the organisation a spot in the league over the Los Angeles Guerrillas spot is a target, and he's pretty confident they might be able to make that happen, but doesn't want to say more as of yet. But Ronnie is pretty convinced that, yeah, they did try and take the other guys. I mean, that was the rumour, right? The Gentle Mates were coming in to buy the Guerrillas spot to acquire that, and then make big offers for Scrap and HyDra. Now, apparently Nade and Thieves, they got the deal over the line. Gentle Mates made a big push for this. It got very close. If Dan wasn't locked on Thieves, I think they would have taken the offer. So that's very interesting, isn't it? That, you know, if you're Scrap and HyDra as kind of like almost a package deal or whatever, and there were questions whether Envoy would have gone as well, but I guess, you know, looking at the opportunities, okay, maybe even Gentle Mates are offering more money and offering other opportunities, but, you know, Ghosty was obviously a good asset, potentially a lock to the team in terms of communication and how he was able to help the OpTic guys improve when he joined them, and now Ghosty's going to be in his 3rd year as well, so he's probably going to be, you know, the best version of Ghosty that we have seen so far this year, which is very exciting, with a Scrappy, a HyDra duo joining alongside. So, yeah, if Gentle Mates had somebody else, maybe it would have been possible if they had a team already nearly ready to go, but, no, Los Angeles Thieves, it seems like, have got the job done. I guess the question is for Gentle Mates, like, where do they go from here? If they did try and pull the trigger big time to get the deal done for Scrap and HyDra and it didn't happen, are they now going to say, oh, well, you know, we tried, we're not bothered with the CDL, we're going to, you know, try again at some point in the future? Or is it probably more likely that they're going to look to get the Guerrillas spot anyway, build a team, and then at some point in the future attract HyDra to return back? It's absolutely possible that Gentle Mates could at least field a reasonably competitive team with at least, you know, some French interest. I mean, they could put aBeZy on there. I think he'd be a pretty good role player to fill out a roster. Linz you could get as well, possibly off G2, but they're probably going to want to keep him. aBeZy's locked on Surge, although he is Belgian but French speaking. Cobra you could possibly get as well. So I think Gentle Mates, they can still come in if they want for Los Angeles Guerrillas, still form a roster, still have some sort of French interest involved, and then maybe down the line acquire HyDra when the time comes. I guess that might be the plan if they do decide to still commit to the space, given the fact that Thieves, it seems, have now formed the God Squad. So let's see what Shotzzy had to say on this. Of course, there's been lots of reaction to it, really, how good this team's going to be, how much of a threat they're going to be to the top 2 in the league, because the reality is that on paper, OpTic are also pretty damn nice, as are FaZe, as we full well know. But we've seen those teams play for an entire season. We know that those teams have their absolute very high peaks. We know that those teams also have their flaws, as will this new Los Angeles Thieves God Squad, as it were. But this is Shotzzy's perspective.
What do you think about that 103's roster? They look like a good roster.
It's definitely going to be interesting, though. I feel like the past two... I mean, I guess it's barely started happening, what, last year? Like, the top 3 teams or whatever? Top 4 teams? Like, you could... Any given Sunday, you could kind of say, like, oh, these guys, you know? Ultra not being a thing, I feel like it's legit just going to be us 3. No bullshit. Just because of the fact that, like, every, like, player, like, Scrap and Paco and fucking Dill and, oh, Dan. Oh, my God. I'm like, fuck am I missing? They've always been, like, on a good team. Like, them assembling, like, it's gonna... Whatever team that they were with, I don't think are gonna be in the conversation anymore. I could be wrong, though. Hey, you never know. I feel like it is gonna be weird for them. Or actually, probably not, like, Scrap, really, but playing with different people. That's, like, one thing that I had to adjust to. Playing with AG and... I mean, not really Ken. Ken's more, like, kind of how I envision playing the game. So he kind of, like, fit perfectly. But at least with AG, like, holy fucking shit. I had a hella switch up my... not really switch... I mean, at first I had to switch up, but then, like, I got used to it. Like, examples I could give you, which is not, like, a bad thing or whatever. It's just his playstyle, but, like, he would spawn up and, like, get a like, guaranteed spots, which essentially means that, like, he knows where the action would be coming and basically get kills and shit. Once I got used to it, they got to a point where, like, I started doing what he was doing, and then he would, like, play off that.
So Shotzzy does believe, yeah, we're probably going for a 4-team league into a 3-team league, and I think it's also kind of cool to see in some ways that the big 3 are now effectively the big 3 organizations, right? I feel like it was kind of strange last year that we had Los Angeles Thieves not having an especially competitive team until towards the end of the season, right? Because OpTic, FaZe, Thieves, they are the big 3 organizations in the league, and, you know, at least in terms of, like, overall esports and stuff like that as well. Clearly, New York and also Toronto, they have done a great job over the last few years, and they formed competitive rosters for very good reasons, and hopefully they can still form something that's competitive for the upcoming year. And I definitely think Toronto, if they do have Insight, Beans, CleanX +1 such as ReeaL, like, that's still gonna be a reasonably competitive team on their day. I guess one of the other points is where are the teams going to be based, because if, well, let's say Cloud9 are apparently going to move to LA, and of course Los Angeles Thieves are based out of there, then, and also you've got Gentle Mates maybe buying Gorillas, where are they going to be based, who knows, then the team's going to be based out of LA. What does that mean for the internet, right? Because we know that historically online cards will favor teams in Texas rather than teams based out in California, generally speaking. So there's that factor as well for the online play, but yeah, Shotzzy reckons it's probably going to go to a 3-team league. I feel like what he said at the end, though, was quite interesting, because there is a feeling right now, and I think understandably so, about exactly how this team is going to mesh, how quickly they're going to be able to put it all together, because we know that Shotzzy and Pred, they did take a little bit of time, right, to really figure it out. Of course, Shotzzy made that quite clear in that clip that, you know, there were a few things he had to work out with Pred's playstyle before he could make it become successful. And, you know, my opinion's generally always been, if you have enough talent, you will be able to make it work. And I feel like that is true for this new Los Angeles Thieves roster. But, you know, how quickly and how well are HyDra and Envoy going to work together on the SMGs? That, I think, is a reasonably good question. But we know the ceiling is undoubtedly incredibly high, right, of that roster. And on paper, I mean, it's tough to say on paper how good they are compared to OpTic and FaZe, because Dashy, Kenny, Pred, Shotzzy is an absurd team on paper, as of course is Simp, aBeZy, Drazah, right? You know, on paper, those teams are absurd, and if you look at the respective rosters, you know, you might say that Ghosty and, you know, Envoy are 2 of the weakest players out of those 3 teams that I just mentioned. But Scrap and HyDra, you can argue, are number 1, number 2 in their respective roles. At the very minimum, they're joint best, as far as I'm concerned, AO and SMG in the world, and potentially Ghosty and Envoy could be the perfect pieces. So on paper, I think it's very tough to say. My read is that OpTic, they seemingly, you know, obviously on their day, OpTic are incredible. They have the highest ceiling in the entire game, I would say, OpTic Texas. They showed that at Major 3 and at Champs. But, you know, they're not always going to be on point, right? We saw it certainly during Major 4, right? The incredible slump that they had, which was completely absurd given the circumstances. And FaZe, we know that getting the maximum effectiveness out of Cellium can at times be a problem, right? And they suffer with that a fair bit this season. There was actually an interesting graphic here that, well, well, Vonda kind of puts out thinking that Thieves are going to smoke FaZe in hardpoint this year. And to be fair, the numbers don't necessarily disagree with that. If you look at FaZe's hardpoint record, their percentage of outslaying their opponent was the highest, but they lost quite a lot of games where they outslayed. And that kind of level of effectiveness was not shared by others. Like OpTic, for example, when they outslayed, they always won, which is pretty absurd, isn't it? Like whenever OpTic had more kills than their opponents, they always won the hardpoint map. And Los Angeles Thieves are up there as well. Like they only outslayed 10 times. On LAN at least this is, but they won every single time that they did. So, you know, there is a feeling that that kind of style may be helpful, but we know that FaZe and OpTic, like, you know, we've seen them play for a year. We know they've obviously got their massive pros. There's also going to be some cons in there as well. The same will be true for Thieves, but on paper, there's no doubt they're right up there. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.